Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's questions and answers. Here's our first question. I would like to ask if it is possible to send me the meditation for abundance, how to create abundance in life, the technique from Grandmaster Julie Scott. The link to it will be greatly appreciated. So we're posting that link in the chat. We published an issue of the Rosicrucian Digest that had a theme of applying the Rosicrucian principles. And in that, I shared a program for visualization and prosperity that was originally developed when I was a member of the St. Louis Lodge, and then it developed from there. And it includes step-by-step on how to visualize what it is you want to manifest in your life, and how you step into the vibration of that experience or condition or person that you want to be. Also, in that same issue of the Rosicrucian Digest, we published both an audio tape as well as a transcript of an article by Erwin Watermeyer, who was a RCUI instructor, Rose Qua University International instructor. He wrote an article called 2 Practical Principles. And this was the basis for the prosperity workshop and this article that I just mentioned. So you can either listen to 2 Practical Principles. It was originally an audio recording, or we've also transcribed it, and it's an article in that same Rosicrucian Digest, applying the Rosicrucian principles. Here is what Erwin Watermeyer says about what these 2 practical principles are. There are 2 important principles. First, the only events of which we may become objectively aware are impressions received in terms of the 5 objective senses. Seeing, smelling, hearing. Consequently, before any psychic or non-material impression may be objectively realized, it must first transform itself into an objective sense impression. So we need to see it, we need to feel it, we need to walk through and experience what it is we want to manifest. Now, the next part of 2 Practical Principles. Secondly, our subconscious speaks and understands only the language of symbols. Consequently, when one desires to impress anything upon the subconscious, it must first be translated or transposed into a symbol or image. These principles work most efficiently in what Rosicrucians call the borderline state. And the borderline state, or we also in our teachings call it the subjective state, is when our objective faculties are momentarily suspended or inactive. And you've no doubt experienced this, like right before you fall asleep. You're not really awake and you're not asleep yet. This is the mental state during which the objective and subjective consciousness are partially subdued so that the subconscious may rise in power. So it's a way for our subconscious mind to speak to us. So this is all described in that one issue of the Rosicrucian Digest with many resources, the recording of 2 Practical Principles, many, many other resources there. Another approach that I have found to be effective is just to be so aware in the moment that I'm able to respond to opportunities that arise. And H. Spencer Lewis has written an article. We're going to publish this in the next Forum magazine, which will come out on the fall equinox this weekend. The next issue of the Forum will be published then, and it includes an article by H. Spencer Lewis called The Truth About Affirmations. And he says in this, you can't do affirmations if you're in terrible pain, think he uses the example of a toothache. I don't have a toothache. Or if someone is experience a big challenge, to just deny what the situation is. He uses another example, like let's say if we have failure in business and material affairs. He says that there is value in these challenges that we face because then we can see what the cause is. This way we can discover and change the cause of whatever the condition is in our life. And this is related to what I was just saying about being open to opportunities in the moment, that we visualize what it is we want to experience. We act that part. Maybe we dress like someone who's already succeeded in what it is that we want to manifest, or we can volunteer in that field. We can watch for opportunities to connect us. We're creating a relationship with what it is we want. So that's why volunteering, or just starting to do something, that if you're interested in manifesting something in your life, connect yourself with it. Find a way to connect yourself with what it is you want to manifest. Again, it can be volunteering. It can be, you could, let's say you're interested in architecture. You could subscribe to a magazine on architecture, or you could go on an architecture tour. So we connect ourselves with what it is we want to manifest. In Rosicrucian Principles for Home and Business, a book written by H. Spencer Lewis, he says, real mystics know that they must work through the cosmic and with cosmic law in order to bring about the realization of their conceived and visualized dreams and plans. They never forget cosmic law and never fail to take cosmic into partnership with all their plans and desires. And part of that is seeing how what it is we want to manifest can be of benefit to others, how we can contribute more to society, to humankind with what it is we want to manifest. Here's our next question. After the Rosicrucian trip to Morocco, the Grand Master told about spirits and Christian Rosenkreutz. She seemed to suggest that Christian Rosenkreutz played some role in Morocco for the order in person. Please comment on this. So it says, I seem to suggest that Christian Rosenkreutz played some role in Morocco for the order. And what happened is an allegorical figure named Brother C.R. traveled to Morocco, and he then perpetuated that wisdom. This is described in the first Rosicrucian manifesto that was published in 1614, and it's called the Fama Fraternitatis, the fame of the fraternity. At that time, Europe was in a crisis. It had been in war for decades, Christians killing Christians. There had been drought and famine and pandemic. And there were 30 students and professors at the University of Tübingen in Germany who said, we need to do something about this crisis. So they offered that Europe could usher in a new era of peace and prosperity by embracing the knowledge of the primordial tradition, combining mysticism with scientific knowledge based on observation of nature. So these students and teachers wanted to transform Europe at this pivotal time, this time of crisis. So they created a story, and it's an allegory telling the story of a young man who traveled to uncommon lands where he gathered wisdom. And the young man is called Brother C.R. Later, he is called Christian Rosenkreutz. In this first manifesto, though, he's called Brother C.R. And he was, he grew up in Germany. He was an orphan at a young age, and he was born in 1378, the year 1378. And when he became an orphan, he was taken in at a monastery. And this one brother suggested that they should travel together to Jerusalem. So they began a journey from Germany to Jerusalem. Their first stop was Cyprus, and the brother died. So now Brother CR is left all by himself in Cyprus. And you may know that Cyprus was the birthplace of the Greek goddess Aphrodite. And it was her union with Hermes that gave birth to Hermaphrodite, an androgynous child. So Cyprus is important in that story. So here you have the goddess Aphrodite and Hermes, who is well, Aphrodite is the goddess of love and beauty, and Hermes is the keeper of the ancient Egyptian mysteries. They come together and they create an androgynous child. Aphrodite gives birth to an androgynous child who has features that are both masculine and feminine. Androgyny symbolizes the balance of the primordial masculine and feminine, the harmonized wholeness of the spiritual and the material, and freedom from the world's duality. In alchemy, androgyny is a form of spiritual alchemy in which a new being is created through the natural harmony of the feminine and the masculine. So Brother C.R. begins his journey really in Cyprus, where he doesn't go on to Jerusalem. He never goes to Jerusalem. His journey takes him elsewhere. And the beginning of his journey is this natural harmony of the masculine and the feminine, and of his rates of vibration, his vibrational nature. So you can see our map here. Next, Brother CR goes to Damcar, which was a very important city in Arabia. We're really not familiar with it now, but it was a mystical city of Arabia inhabited by a group of adepts. And there was an important encyclopedia there. They gathered together scientific and esoteric knowledge for this encyclopedia. Damcar was known to have safeguarded the Corpus Hermeticum, which is the name, the body of the Hermetic teachings, the core documents of the Hermetic tradition, perpetuating the wisdom of the mystery schools of ancient Egypt. So when you hear about Hermetism and the Hermetic tradition, this is the wisdom of ancient Egypt that's been passed on. While Brother CR was in Damcar, he met with Ismailian magi who passed on to him important knowledge in physics and mathematics. And these were exceptional contributions from the Arab world. The Arabs contributed great knowledge in physics and mathematics. And these magi also gave him a secret book called the Liber Mundi, which means book of the world. And in the Fama Fraternitatis, it's called the Book M, the Liber Mundi, with the ideas of Paracelsus, which Brother CR translated into Latin. Paracelsus was the German-Swiss physician and alchemist who had worked to synthesize many different branches of esoteric knowledge. So before I was mentioning about the Rosicrucian Journal, we continue the tradition of opening ourselves up to the mystical and scientific together, and to questioning what we think we know. Paracelsus was a pioneer in several aspects of the medical revolution of the Renaissance, emphasizing the value of observation in combination with received wisdom and establishing the role of chemistry in medicine. He rejected the previous Galen medical approach and met with the most important alchemist of his time, not only to learn their efficacious medical treatments, but also to discover the latent forces of nature and how to use them. Then Brother C.R. continued his journey, going from Damkar to Egypt, where he studied biology and zoology. Then he traveled to Fez in Morocco. Fez was an important philosophical and intellectual center with magnificent libraries. And this is what this question was referring to. We journeyed to Fez, and this library and this very old university still exist in Fez. This was also a place Fez was known for its alchemy school. Brother C.R. perfected his knowledge of historical cycles there and learned through nature that what is below is like that which is above. So you can see in this allegory, the authors, these students and professors at Tübingen, are presenting more than what the dominant culture in Europe was teaching at the time. The value of sharing knowledge, the value of learning from nature, understanding cycles. In Fez, Brother C.R. was introduced to what is called the elementary inhabitants. And these are sometimes known as nymphs or fairies or gnomes who revealed many of their secrets to him. Elementary inhabitants are invisible spiritual counterparts of visible nature. These are the essences of earth, air, water, and fire. And according to Paracelsus, this very important personage, this alchemist and medical doctor, the elementary inhabitants share the secrets of nature with those who know how to contact them. So, in other words, when you listen to nature, you better understand the world around you and yourself. In Fez, Brother C.R. was most impressed with the transdisciplinary collaboration among the scholars of Arabia and Africa, who met each year to share their knowledge. They celebrated if they found better ideas or if experience showed the reasoning of their previous findings might not be correct. Every year, their knowledge in mathematics, physics, and magic was amended. So they celebrated when they discovered that what they believe might not be right, and now they have better wisdom. So Brother C.R. continued his journey, and he was in Spain. He wanted to share there what he had learned. He was so thrilled with what he had learned and experienced, he wanted to share it. And the people he met with in Spain, the politicians and the religious leaders, didn't want to hear it. They were more interested in protecting what they already believed. They didn't want their knowledge questioned. So Brother C.R. continues back to Germany, and everywhere he went, the same thing happened. So once he was back home in Germany, Brother C.R. began to write down all the knowledge he had gained on his journey. So on our map now, he's back in his home nation of Germany. So we're done with the map now. So he wrote down everything that he had learned during his journey. After 5 years, he invited 3 trusted brothers from his old monastery to join him in his work. And Brother C.R.'s goal was to create a fraternity capable of providing counsel to the leaders of Europe, the political leaders and the religious leaders. And they wanted to present this wisdom. And again, this is an allegory. What they were saying is there's more than what everybody's teaching, and what we're working with now is failing miserably. Again, they just had decades of wars, of Christians killing Christians, of a pandemic, of famine. There was unbelievable superstition and intolerance. So the predominant culture was not working. The students and professors in Tübingen, Germany, at the University of Tübingen, which was, along with the Sorbonne, they were the two most important universities in Europe at that time. They said something has to change. So they were writing an appeal. The Fama Fraternitatis is an appeal to the leaders of Europe to stop the superstition, the intolerance, and to embrace the knowledge that they allegorically shared in the journey of Brother CR. And again, he later becomes Christian Rosenkreutz. Christian Rosenkreutz was not a real person. He is an allegorical person to tell the story of a seeker on the Rosicrucian path, of someone who reached back into other traditions that valued the feminine as well as the masculine, where freedom of thought was celebrated, where you have to let go of what you think you know in order to gain wisdom, to understand the wisdom of nature, for example, nature spirits, and to embrace these other ways of knowing. So that's the allegorical story of Brother CR, who then becomes Christian Rosenkreutz. And the Fama Fraternitatis was published anonymously in 1614. And you can imagine at that time that it wasn't possible to publish under your own name because you would have been persecuted. The Roman Catholic Church had created the Inquisition to stamp out any questioning about about anything that didn't come from that church. So the next year, 1615, the second Rosicrucian Manifesto was published, the Confessio Fraternitatis. And then the next year, the third Rosicrucian Manifesto was published, the Chemical Wedding of Christian Rosenkreutz. And I'm here in the Rosicrucian Research Library at Rosicrucian Park, and we have the first edition copies of those manifestos, again from 1614, 15, and 16. And then about 400 years later, 3 new Rosicrucian manifestos were published, and these were sent out in the year 2004. 2001 was the first one, the Positio Fraternitatis, and then another one after that, and then the new Chemical Wedding of Christian Rosenkreutz. And we have those in the Rosicrucian Research Library too. Here's our next question. The Grand Lodge has announced that there will be a World Convention in Africa in a few years. I anticipate great interest in this convention, and it will also be expensive for those of us in the States. Since technology is very efficient and awesome these days, would it be possible for the Grand Lodge to arrange transmission of the Grand Master's presentations via Zoom? I am seeing members from Africa and England attending regional Zoom meetings in the United States. So the next AMWORK World Convention is in Panama in 2027. We have these conventions every 4 years. So the one after that will be the one in Africa in 2031. And we haven't decided what country in Africa that convention will be held in yet. And transmitting this sounds like a great idea to me. I'm not managing that convention, and I think it just would be great for as many people as possible to participate and benefit from the messages. And we have something like that coming up very soon. On Saturday, October 5th, we're going to have a worldwide meditation led by our Imperator. And we've posted the link to this in the chat. This is a Rosicrucian global meditation with Imperator Claudio Matsuko on Saturday, October 5th. And because it's worldwide, it's going to be kind of early in some places and kind of late in other places. And here in San Jose and on the Pacific time, it's going to be 7 a.m. on Saturday, October 5th. So we'll have to get up a little bit earlier than everybody else, but that's so that members in Australia and Japan it won't be totally the middle of the night for them. So again, that is Saturday, October 5th, the Rosicrucian Global Meditation, and the link for that is in the chat. Our next question, can one be called to join the Rosicrucian Order through a dream? For example, being completely unfamiliar and not really having any intention to join, but keep having dreams and then just wake up with a knowing you need to join, study, and learn. What would that be called, please? Also, could this be possible? One part of this order, could it be possible one was a part of this order in ancient days, and hence why in a strange way it feels so familiar? So I know several members who were guided to join the Rosicrucian Order through a dream. And one of them I remember in particular kept seeing a rose cross. Another one heard the word Rosicrucian. And this is our subconscious mind speaking to us. As I mentioned earlier, we have just one consciousness, and it speaks to us in different ways. We have our objective consciousness, which concerns the perception of the external world by means of our 5 sensory faculties, and then the mental interpretations of this perception. So both of those go together. And our lessons tell us objective consciousness is therefore associated directly with our state of wakefulness and with voluntary actions we may exert over our physical surroundings. Due to its very nature and role, the objective consciousness is governed by our brain and is primarily concerned with our physical body. The subconscious, on the other hand, directs all our involuntary functions and works under the direct control of cosmic consciousness. It is through this intermediary that we may receive psychic impressions, which our objective faculties cannot perceive. By its very nature, it is unlimited and immortal, because it is closely associated with the consciousness of the soul. So it can perceive beyond the usual limits of time and space. And there are members who feel that they were Rosicrucians in a previous life. So who knows? There is a Rosicrucian monograph that encourages us to consider us in a future life and see us responding to the call of being a Rosicrucian in that life too. Here's our next question. Do we have free will in terms of when we die, or is death something pre-assigned for us at a specific time? Can we intend to live longer because we feel we have a particular life purpose to fulfill and want to continue working on it in this incarnation? So I don't know if we are predestined to go through transition at a particular time. And my understanding, my recollection is that the monographs don't address this in particular. Regarding wanting to live longer because we have this purpose in life, perhaps that just is a way to encourage us to make whatever time we have left as impactful as possible. Regarding free will, the Rosicrucian perspective is that we have free will in some ways, and in other ways we don't have free will. And this always reminds me of the serenity prayer, which is God or the divine, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And the ancient Stoics believe that some things are in our control and others are not. I've spoken before about the Stoic Epictetus, who I find particularly inspiring, and someone wrote down what he said during his lifetime, and this is available in a book called The Handbook. And the very first lines of Epictetus's handbook say, some things are in our control and others not. Things in our control are opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion, and in a word, whatever are our own actions. Things not in our control are body, property, reputation, command, and in one word, whatever are not our actions. The Rosicrucian teachings also discuss will and karma. And here's an excerpt from that. The word karma is a Sanskrit term that literally means act, action, or reaction. In its mystical sense, it designates the law of cause and effect that rules the spiritual evolution of humans. By virtue of this law, which is also called the law of compensation, the destiny of every individual is determined by the way a person uses his or her free will and not by chance or the application of arbitrary decrees. In other words, we each reap what we sow, and we experience an existence in which our general unfoldment is conditioned to a great extent by our behavior and the choices we make. These choices being either good or not supporting good. Recalling this karmic determinism, Buddha declares in one of his sermons, humans are inheritors of their acts, and it is upon this inheritance that their consciousness finds support in evolving from life to life. This statement expresses perfectly the relationship existing between our present situation and what we have thought, said, or done in some more or less distant past. It also shows that reincarnation is closely linked to karma. So the Rosicrucian teachings don't say whether we have total free will or partial free will. There are instances of both. And some of you may be familiar with a recently published book by Robert Sapolsky called Determined. And Dr. Sapolsky is an American professor of biology, neurology, and neurosurgery at Stanford University. And he offers that everything is predetermined. And he bases this statement on many things, but especially upon the research that's been done that shows that when the brain, when electrodes are attached to our skull and we can see which part of our brain is being activated, that our brain has activity in the area of what we're going to do before we consciously know we're going to do something. And this is really not speculative anymore. This is pretty much accepted throughout the scientific community that our brain has already decided what it's going to do, and then we think, oh, I'm going to do that. So our brains know things. Our brains act. We can see activity in our brains with the research before we do them. So if you decide to do something, it's because everything leading up to that moment led you there. This is the proposal in Determined. And it's a fascinating concept that if we say, well, I decided to be at this teleconference today. My free will, I decided to be here. Well, something led you to that point. Something led you, maybe maybe you're a Rosicrucian, maybe you're interested in mysticism, which led you to Rosicrucianism. Maybe someone in your family was interested in mysticism, which led you to that. So you just keep going back until everything is a very natural result of what has happened before. And I really appreciate that Dr. Sapolsky applies this to the discussion around people who break the law or people who have whatever challenges that we think, oh, they had a choice not to do that. They had a choice not to be addicted to drugs or had a choice not to commit that horrible crime. And it's fascinating whether we accept that everything has been predetermined and there is no free will or not. It's fascinating to consider that everything we've experienced leads us to this moment, including our family, our genes, our environment. Maybe some people, maybe because of where someone lives, they had a lack of opportunity. Maybe there was abuse in the family. And Dr. Sapolsky says that that doesn't mean that you let violent criminals loose in the community. They should be in a place where they can't hurt other people, and it gives us a chance to better understand other people. And that's what I value most when I read this book. I really appreciate the compassionate approach to understanding how much control we have over what we do. Now, also in determined, I really found this interesting. Not only does it apply to somebody who breaks the law or hurts other people, but also traits that we may consider desirable. Like if you're like, wow, that person is so smart. He uses the example that praise seems as irrelevant as praising a car for having a strong work ethic. It's just what it is. So if you're feeling kind of puffed up because you're so brilliant or so great at something, that too is predetermined because of the opportunities you've had, everything led you to that point. Now, the Rosicrucian teachings tell us the best way to cultivate our will consists of 2 steps. And I'm going to make a connection with what I just said. First, by paying attention to the impulses conveyed to us by our subconscious when it deems it necessary to prompt us to act in a certain way. And second, by submitting such impulses to our reflection in order to activate them by corresponding words or deeds. So, this has really been verified so substantially that our brains are activated before we realize we're going to do what just was activated in our brain. So here, the Rosicrucian teachings, hundreds of years old, by paying attention to the impulses conveyed to us by our subconscious when it deems it necessary to prompt us to act in a certain way. And then by submitting such impulses to our reflection in order to activate them by corresponding words or deeds. Probably, I don't know, but probably what Dr. Sapolsky would say is we don't really have any choice in that second part either by submitting those promptings to reflection. Now, there's another researcher who I find very interesting, Robert Lanza, who writes a lot about consciousness. And so if we're talking about is death pre-assigned, do we have free will? Dr. Lanza talks about multiverses, multiple universes where everything is played out. Every possible scenario is played out. So maybe in the life we're in now, maybe we can know, maybe we can change when we would die. But in another universe, we might not be able to. Now, another question that came up is, can you recommend some healing practices for people experiencing mysterious illnesses? And this is related, it says, in some indigenous shamanic traditions, they say that sometimes people get ill so they can master self-healing, to be able to take care of themselves to a new level of personal power and mastery. In the spirit of physician, heal thyself. How do Rosicrucians feel about this? Can one really heal oneself through mind alone? yes, it is said that people can experience near death and they return with the ability to heal others. That's the foundation of the shamanic tradition. The people that I'm aware of who have achieved this didn't get ill on purpose. They push themselves to an extreme, or an illness pushed them to an extreme where they almost died. But the ones I'm aware of didn't choose to almost die. But that might very well be the case. Rosicrucian healing is based on a balance of vibrations. And there are many techniques for Rosicrucian healing. The entire 6th degree of our lessons is based on healing ourselves and others. And we published a special issue of the Rosicrucian Digest on radiant health in 2019. And we've just posted in the chat the link to that. This has many Rosicrucian healing techniques and meditations. So that's in response to, can you recommend some healing practices for people experiencing illnesses? So we have another question related to dreams. If you have a dream and you are at a specific location that you know well at a future date, like 10 years from now, and you were able to interact with the people there and even offer help to some of them as if you were physically there, can this dream be considered as time travel? So if you can go to some point in the future, 10 years from now, a place that really exists, and if you can help someone 10 years from now, can this dream be considered time travel? And it also says, when the date comes and you go to the same place, you will see yourself, and can you talk to yourself? So the Rosecroft Journal published an article called Entanglement, Causality, and Cohesion of Space-Time by Michael Amaral, MD, FACS. And we posted the link in this. So it's, again, in the Rosecroft Journal. The article is by Dr. Amaral, A-M-A-R-A-L, and it explores the question of, can we influence the past? Can we in the future influence the past? And a lot has been written about this subject, as well as, can we influence the future? We know that we can do things right now that, like dominoes, they will have an effect in the future. Can we travel to the future? And I have experimented with this. I don't know if my actions with my meditation created the result, but it's so fascinating to think about this. And when I mentioned earlier about the multiverses, that everything can possibly happen, that in another realm, in another universe, we can do this. Every possibility has happened. So that's definitely possible if you believe that. But never mind multiverses. Because think about this. There are places in our universe where, because light takes so long to travel, that aliens could see dinosaurs still here on Earth, because they're 65 million light years away. But they would need technology that is beyond our comprehension right now. So, when we determine a light year, how far away something is, because of the finite speed of light, when we look up in the night sky, we're looking into the past. The bright star Sirius is 8.6 light years away. That's how far it is. That means the light hitting our eyes tonight has been traveling for 8.6 years. So, to put it another way, when we look at Sirius tonight, we see it as it was 8.6 years ago. So anything that happened after that, we don't know. And yes, astronomers in another galaxy could see our region of space as it was at the time of dinosaurs. But no, they couldn't see the actual dinosaurs unless they have technology that is beyond our comprehension. So could those people in the future communicate with us, and can they influence what happens in the past? So we had a lot of very thought-provoking questions this month. And I thank you all so much for participating in our teleconference. Thank you very much.